Hey everyone, Luke here, and today I'm talking about grains and how we use them in nutritional balancing science. Okay? So, first of all, grains are an important part of the diet that we use. I know a lot of diets think that we shouldn't be eating grains or eating less of them. We do like people to eat less grains in a lot of diets, but they are a good part of the diet, okay? These are mostly paleo people that are thinking that we shouldn't be eating grains. And their logic for this is that human beings started out eating meat and fruits and nuts and things like that because they were foraging back before we started cultivating crops. But we cultivated the crops and we designed them to be nutritious for our bodies. And there's nothing wrong with eating these foods, okay? Now, I do want to say that it's not the staple, and that's important to remember. The staple in our diet is really cooked vegetables. Okay, so grains are not a staple. They are a staple in a lot of diets. If you think of like a macrobiotic type diet, in a lot of Asian cultures, they eat a lot of rice. Mediterranean type diets, they do eat a lot of whole wheat, or they tend to, so it depends. You know what I mean? Even in India, they eat a lot of rice too. But it's not the staple food in our programs, and that's important to realize. It's because the cooked vegetables are really where all the nutrients and the vitamins, not all of them, but they're most concentrated in the cooked vegetables, the vitamins and the minerals and the phytonutrients, and they're easy on the digestive system and all things like that. Okay, so I also want to say that grains aren't completely necessary for everyone. That's important to realize as well. Is that I know a lot of people that are on these programs and they heal fine and they do fine without eating any grains basically. And that they just basically eat cooked vegetables and animal protein. That's really the majority of their diet. That's the majority of any diet, nutritional balancing diet. But I mean that's like 95% of what they eat is cooked vegetables and animal protein. They're just getting their carbohydrates and starches from cooked vegetables and getting them from the root vegetables like sweet potatoes and yams and carrots and onions and rutabagas and things like that. Those root vegetables have a lot of carbohydrates, and if you're not eating grains, those are very important because you're not going to get enough carbohydrates, you're not going to have enough energy, and you're going to get way too thin if you don't eat a lot of root vegetables and you're not eating grains, okay? So also it's important to realize that some people need grains more than others, okay? We call these fast and slow oxidizers, okay? So slow oxidizers equals less grains, okay? And then fast oxidizers equal more. Okay, so that's important to realize is that grains and any carbohydrates tend to speed up the oxidation rate a little, and so slow oxidizers are going to need a little more grains in their diet. Whereas fast oxidizers, their oxidation rate is already too fast. This simply means that their adrenals and their thyroid are overactive, and fat tends to slow it down. Okay, so they're going to need more fat in relation to their carbohydrates, which is mostly what grains are. They're mostly carbohydrates. Okay, so with slow oxidizers, I like people to have 1 or 2 servings of grains a day. Generally, like with me and like my diet, I usually eat grains about once a day. Okay, so generally with slow oxidizers, it's going to be about 8 to 10% of your diet by volume. Okay, and then for fast oxidizers, it's going to be about 4% by volume. Okay, that's important to realize as well. So, like I said, fast oxidizers need a lot more fat as far as the carbohydrates. And so, they might eat grains every other day, or if they do eat grains every day, they're going to have a little bit. There's nothing wrong with fast oxidizers having some grains every day. But they're not going to have as big as servings, and they're going to have more fat in the meal, right? So to balance it. Whereas slow oxidizers, they can have grains a couple times a day, and that's fine. Like I was saying, for instance, me, I usually have it about once a day. I like oatmeal in the morning. What I tend to do is I actually tend to eat my carbohydrates more in the morning, and then as I shift into the night, I eat more animal protein and cooked vegetables. And I kind of recommend this as well. It seems to work well because the carbohydrates kind of provide more energy in the morning, kind of gets you more kick-started, whereas you're slowing down at night, eating more animal protein and cooked vegetables helps you slow down a little more. So like I said, for breakfast I'll have oatmeal, I'll have you have a pressure cooker, I'll pressure cook amaranth sometimes, quinoa is good, I'll have brown rice, bread, that's wheat-free. And speaking of wheat-free bread, that brings me to my next very important point, is that we don't like all the grains, okay? Now some people do need to avoid gluten completely, but in my experience, gluten isn't really the problem as it is so much wheat, and that most people's digestive systems, as they heal, can handle gluten, like oatmeal and rye and barley. Those all have gluten, but they're fine foods to eat if you can handle them. And this goes with grains in general. A lot of people, their digestive systems are so messed up that they can't handle grains in the beginning, okay? And then as their digestive system heals from the program, they're actually able to incorporate more grains into their diet. Things like candida, improper flora, just bad digestion in general. A lot of people get brain fog when they eat too many carbohydrates at once from things like grains because the candida symptoms. So that's important to realize as well, is that a lot of people, when they start off, can't eat grains. But generally, like I said, I do like people to generally, eventually get to the point where they can eat a fair amount of grains in their diet, okay? So, you need to avoid wheat. That's important to realize. Okay, is there no wheat? Okay, that's very important. Or spelt, actually. Spelt is just very similar to wheat, but like I said, gluten isn't so much the problem today as it really is wheat. Wheat is very hybridized today. It doesn't resemble the grain that it used to be. It's kind of sad because wheat was an excellent food 100 years ago. Just like tuna, which you can't eat now because of all the mercury. It's true with a lot of foods, is that they used to be fine, but nowadays they're just not really good to be eaten at all. And this goes for even organic, whole grain, sprouted wheat. All the wheat today. The wheat that they do import from Europe that is, I think it's called inkhorn. I don't know how you say it, but it's something like that, where it's actually the very first heirloom wheat, or wheat, it's like the plant that wheat first came from. I have seen people eat that and do okay off of it. So I'm not 100% sure that's okay, but it's something you might experiment with, and if you don't feel, most people when they eliminate wheat can really feel the difference. They have more energy, better digestion, less bloating, better skin, better elimination, all sorts of things. And I have seen people that eat the inkhorn, and they, I was probably saying it wrong, but whatever, they do fine off of it. So that might be okay, but I'm not sure. I'd have to research it more. But in general, no wheat. Okay, that's very important. All of it. Okay? And then my favorite grain for people is actually blue corn. Okay, that's my favorite grain for people. Okay. Now, blue corn is a very, very good grain. It's actually, like I said, my favorite grain. It's in our opinion, in this science, we believe blue corn to be the best grain. That is because it has a lot of selenium in it, which is very bioavailable and needed today by the bodies. It also has phytonutrients in it. Like, the reason why the blue corn is blue is because it has the same antioxidants as blueberries. That actually gives the blue corn its blue color. Yellow corn is also excellent, that's fine. White corn is not as good as the other two. And blue corn is the best, okay? So it goes blue corn is the best, then yellow corn, and then white corn. So that's important to realize. So I generally try to get people to where they can have some blue corn every couple days. Blue corn chips are excellent. A lot of people think corn chips are bad for you, but corn chips are fine. It's just corn that's fried in oil, and the frying of the oil actually captures a lot of the nutrients in it. So that's important to realize. They're not a junk food as some people think they are. So blue corn chips are excellent. They make blue corn tortillas, I've seen. You can get blue corn flour in bulk. I've seen that as well at my local co-op. You can make blue corn bread with this. You can make all sorts of stuff with the blue corn. But like I said, the other grains that are excellent are like amaranth, quinoa. Out of my second favorite grain is probably going to be amaranth. Quinoa is probably a close third. Quinoa and amaranth are probably pretty similar as far as nutritional value. For what I've seen, amaranth is probably a little bit better. So I like to pressure cook amaranth. And then like I said, I also eat some gluten-free bread. Like I said, I don't avoid gluten. I eat oatmeal for breakfast all the time. But generally, if it's wheat-free, it's going to be gluten-free. They don't really make, wheat-free gluten bread. They do, but you don't see it very often. Usually I eat brown rice. And brown rice is also excellent. However, this is very important as well, is to limit brown rice. Okay, so we're going to limit... Right, we're going to limit all rice, actually. Okay, so we're going to limit rice. The reason why I like people to limit rice is because it has an affinity for arsenic, and all the rice today is contaminated with some arsenic. Okay? Now, if you eat it once in a while, it's not a big deal. Now, just like if you eat salmon once in a while, the salmon has too much mercury for you to preferably eat it. But if you eat salmon once every couple weeks, it's not going to put you back that much, okay? It's not that big of a deal. If I'm at a family get-together and they're serving salmon as the main animal protein, and I haven't had it in months, I'm probably going to eat a little bit of salmon. It's not that big of a deal to me. Especially if you're getting enough nutrients. It's important to realize if you're on a nutritional balancing program, and this is kind of different than the general population. So if you're on a nutritional balancing program, you're getting enough minerals for your body, I would hope, if you're following the program correctly. So you're not going to absorb as much of the heavy metals. Because if you're getting enough minerals in your body, they kind of block the heavy metals, and you won't absorb as much. You won't absorb near as much. Okay, so it's important to realize. So if you're on a nutritional balancing program, I usually tell people they can have brown rice 2 to 3 times a week. Okay, now brown rice is the best rice because it's not refined. Wild rice is excellent. Jasmine rice is okay. White rice you probably shouldn't eat because it's refined. The darker the better. Generally. So that's important to realize. And sometimes I have this this gluten-free bread. But like I said, it's important to realize, don't overdo on the rice, okay? And some of it is worse than others. It depends on it's really hard to determine how bad the rice is that you're eating. Like the ones in the West Coast seem to be not quite as bad as the ones on the East Coast. So maybe if you're on the East Coast, limit it even more. And you'll heal faster and you'll develop faster if you don't eat any rice. That's important to realize. Just like with the salmon example, you're better off not eating any salmon because it's too much mercury. And you're better off not eating any rice. So that's important to realize. But I generally tell people, especially in the beginning, as you're weaning yourself off wheat, you can have rice 2 to 3 times a week. Like twice a week is good. The real problem we see is when people, we take them off wheat and then rice really becomes their only substitute and they're eating rice like every day or like twice a day. That becomes a big problem, especially in certain areas, like I said. So if you're going to eat rice, try to keep it 2 to 3 times a week, okay? And also be sure you're taking things like kelp, eating lots of cooked vegetables, using sea salt, try to get enough minerals into your body to help block the arsenic, okay? So I think that about covers it. Slow oxidizers need a little bit less, fast oxidizers need a little bit, slow oxidizers need a little bit more. And oops, looks like I wrote the wrong words. Fast oxidizers, like I said, they need less. Okay, and slow oxidizers need a little bit more carbs. I know I said that, but it looks like I wrote the wrong things on the board. So slow oxidizers need a little bit more carbohydrates and grains because it speeds up the oxidation rate. Fast oxidizers need a little bit less, and they need more fat in order to slow down their oxidation rate. No wheat or spelt. Okay, blue corn is my favorite. Limit rice because of the arsenic. And that pretty much covers it, okay? If you have any questions about grains or about the program in general, leave me a comment down below. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys later.